kind of what inspired the whole idea? What drove you to kind of do this particular show house?
So this is our 11th house in the last 12 years. It's Builder's 30th anniversary. It was last year. We wanted to top it off with a really special event. Thought the most appropriate thing to do would be to build a really cool house. So we didn't want to kind of look backward for ideas that we might incorporate in the house. We wanted to look forward, and we figured that over the next 30 years, builders are going to be under incredible pressure to build more sustainable houses. You know, the homes are going to have to tread more lightly on the earth. They're going to need a smaller carbon footprint. So we wanted to showcase a lot of ideas with energy conservation, conservation of water, and put them all in a house. And we also wanted to showcase new building techniques that we think are going to gain traction in the future.
Great. Talk to me about how this particular house presents a new or a different model for the home building industry. You talked about being distinctive and kind of having to do new things, so you might be competing with your own houses even if they're foreclosed on. So tell me about a little bit about that.
I think builders have a lot to learn from the house. I mean, one of the clear lessons of this housing downturn is that companies that did something different are in a better position. Because often a company will find itself competing with a house that it built 2 or 3 years ago. That house may be for sale as a foreclosure or a resale, and also the kind of product that people have been building in suburban tracts isn't moving as well as product that's closer in, that's probably more difficult to do. So, I mean, clearly builders need to be looking for new and innovative ways to stand out in the market, and this is a clear-cut example. Even if they don't jump on the modular home bandwagon, it at least sends the right signal to people that they should be looking at other ways to provide housing.
Great. Let's talk about the three kind of main principles of this house: the modular side and the kind of hybrid side, the sustainability aspect we've touched on, and then the kind of aesthetic part. From strictly a building practices standpoint, what kind of things does this house present to builders?
People have been building modular show homes for the home builder shows for years. People, they were doing it in the late 70s, early 80s. So this really isn't anything new. Even so, I think even the modular home building industry would have something to learn from this house. Its frame, for instance, is a hybrid frame. It's steel and it's framed in wood. That's a really cool feature. But it's also we're not just using modules, but panels as well. So the industry's figured out that, modules cost a lot of money to transport. So if you're just going to do a big volume space, maybe you're better off doing that with panels. So we're demonstrating that. We have 4 modules. We have a panel section that shows how you could do a bigger volume space. And the other cool component is we have these smart panels that carry the infrastructure in the house. The dream is that one day you'll be able to plug these smart panels together and the house would be good to go. We're not quite there yet, but we're demonstrating kind of that's the next evolution of the hybrid of the hybrid house.
Okay. So let's talk about the aesthetic value. It's clearly modern. I know that's not for everybody, but I know you like it. And where do you think that's going to fit in the market?
Even builders who do traditional housing are going to be under pressure once the industry comes out of the downturn to do cleaner, simpler homes. I think so. Even if a builder doesn't particularly care for the contemporary aesthetic of the house, there are a lot of details inside that they can learn from. I was walking the house yesterday with a couple architects who were kind of going to school on a lot of the molding detail, and I was reminded that molding was installed basically to cover mistakes. So, it's more difficult to achieve a look like this. You need better craftsmen to do it, but still, I think that as we go forward and we come out of this housing downturn and we build more houses for Gen X, Gen Y, people are going to be looking for cleaner lines, and it's going to be an opportunity for builders to kind of take back their spec levels and make things more simple, more elegant.
You talked before about the fact that without that excess, you are taking costs out, and so combined with the kind of factory precision, doing everything in factory, being able to put it up in a couple of days, really has an economic advantage. Just strictly carrying costs. I mean, just practical economics.
Yeah. When you think about it, we thought we had 5 days to put the house together. Turned out we only had 3.5 because there were high winds on the highway and the trailers had to pull off to the side of the road. So it was really incredible that we were able to get it all done, and it looks beautiful. The finished details are great. But think about that from the stick builder's perspective. I mean, if he could put a house, have it done under roof, and maybe even get a certificate of occupancy in a week, compared to the 60, 90 days that it takes to build a stick frame home, that's a huge advantage, particularly in your construction carrying costs. You know, now you may not be able to work a deal where you're only buying the house once the modules are delivered. You may have to pay something up front, but even so, there's some opportunities for savings that need to be explored there.
Excellent. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the sustainability aspect. I know it was a huge part of it. What was the process that you guys went through to kind of make sure that the products here were supporting that goal?
I think that the major message of this house, if you look past the architecture, the construction of it, is the sustainability of it. So it was quite a challenge for us to go out to manufacturers, suppliers, and figure out what they had. You know, because we wanted to meet the highest green building standards. So you need to know whether companies are using recycled material in their product and what percentage of that recycled material is post-consumer waste. You know, anytime anybody's making an environmental claim, you need to look at their certification and figure out if it's from an industry source, a third-party source. So it was a real learning experience. We were surprised at how many manufacturers, though, had thought this through, and were making it relatively easy for builders to do the kind of investigation that we did.
Great. Let's see. Talk to me a little bit about. I want to talk about the Andersen windows now. So again, the whole both the aesthetic aspect and then the performance. So how did Andersen fit in with the goals of the house?
Well, one of the big challenges we had with this house was that there was a lot of glass in the design. You know, it's a contemporary design. The whole idea is to let light in and have all the spaces be bright, cheerful. So, you know, it was a real challenge to find a glass company, a window manufacturer who could give us what we needed, because we not only needed low-E, energy-efficient glass, but we also needed to be concerned with the frame. And Andersen stepped up with a great series of windows that has a composite frame, low-E glass, and the match with the contemporary aesthetic was there.
You hit a little bit on the daylight stuff, so let's go back to that. The importance of windows in terms of just allowing daylight in and the benefits of having that, both from a design standpoint and performance standpoint. I mean, you want to throw a lot of daylight into the room to kind of get it bright and not use artificial lighting. So let's talk about that. You kind of hiccuped on that, so I want to take that again.
I think one of the coolest I think one of the neatest features of the house is how it's kind of suffused with daylight, and that was part of the original design. There's kind of a window well in the middle of the house, and there are huge expanses of glass in the front that you'd see in a contemporary house. So it was a challenge to find a manufacturer sponsor who could step up and provide the kind of product that we needed.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Perfect. Let's talk about that. Talk about kind of how builders are kind of primed for this kind of a system, if not to this extent.
You know, one of the things we thought about when we were developing the agenda for the house is that builders, without really even being aware of it, are using more and more components in building houses. You know, the house is increasingly built with fewer, larger components. People are buying more pre-built stairs, pre-hung doors, engineered roof trusses, even wall panels in many cases. This has been a fascinating development over the last 10, 15 years. So what's the next step in that? Well, I think it's to buy an entire house module that you can put together in a real quick order.